What if the biggest financial danger in your life isn't debt? What if it isn't inflation, unemployment, or even market crashes? What if the real trap is something most people celebrate, something governments encourage, something banks quietly profit from, and something you might already be inside without realizing it? Because the most dangerous financial traps don't look like traps. They look like opportunity. They look like safety. They look like progress. And by the time people realize what's happening, they're already too deep to escape without consequences. Today, we're uncovering the financial trap nobody saw coming, a system so normalized, so deeply woven into modern life, that questioning it can feel irrational, even rebellious. But here's the mystery. If it's so beneficial, why do so many people feel poorer every year, despite earning more than previous generations? Why do entire economies grow, while individuals struggle to stay afloat? And why does the solution often make the problem worse? The answer doesn't lie in a single event. It lies in a chain reaction, decades in the making. To understand this trap, we need to rewind, not just years, but generations. There was a time when money had weight, literally. Gold coins, silver reserves, tangible value. Currencies were once directly tied to physical assets, systems designed to limit reckless expansion. Then something changed. In the mid-20th century, nations began shifting away from strict asset-backed currencies. The reasoning seemed logical at the time: flexibility. Economic growth required liquidity, governments argued. Rigid systems slowed progress, so financial systems became more abstract. Money transformed from something you hold into something you trust. This wasn't inherently evil. In fact, it fueled massive innovation, global trade, and technological leaps. But here's the twist most people missed. When money becomes easier to create, it also becomes easier to manipulate. And when manipulation becomes normalized, entire populations start making decisions based on illusions rather than realities. Banks could lend more, governments could spend more, consumers could buy more. It felt like abundance. But abundance built on expansion has a hidden cost: future obligations. And future obligations rarely stay in the future. The trap didn't begin with individuals, it began with systems. At first, credit was a privilege reserved for emergencies or investments. A farmer might borrow to plant crops. A business owner might take a loan to expand operations. Debt had purpose. It was tied to production. Then credit transformed from a tool into a lifestyle. Advertising campaigns promoted spending as empowerment. Installment plans made luxury items feel accessible. The phrase "you deserve it" became a financial slogan disguised as encouragement. But psychologically, something deeper was happening. Human brains are wired for immediate reward. Credit allowed people to enjoy the reward instantly, while postponing the pain. This delay rewired spending behavior. And when millions of people act on delayed consequences simultaneously, entire economies shift. Financial institutions noticed patterns. More credit meant more profit. More profit meant more incentive to extend credit. It was a self-feeding loop, not malicious, but powerful. And loops rarely stop on their own. As decades passed, access to money expanded rapidly. Home ownership soared. Consumer goods exploded. Travel, entertainment, technology, everything accelerated. On the surface, prosperity looked universal, but beneath the shine, two invisible forces were growing. 1. Rising personal obligations. 2. Increasing systemic dependency. People weren't just buying houses, they were buying decades of payments. They weren't just purchasing items, they were committing slices of their future income. The financial system thrived on predictability. Monthly payments created stable revenue streams for lenders. From the outside, this seemed efficient. From the inside, it slowly reduced flexibility. Imagine a society where most income is already promised to future bills before it's even earned. Freedom begins to shrink, not dramatically, but subtly, and subtle changes are the hardest to notice. At the same time, wages grew, but so did costs. Homes became larger, education became pricier, healthcare expenses expanded. People weren't necessarily poorer, they were more financially committed. Commitment isn't inherently negative. But when commitment exceeds resilience, fragility appears. The breaking point of a financial trap is rarely a single crash, it's a slow realization. It happens when people work harder, yet feel less secure. When raises don't relieve pressure. When saving feels impossible despite income increases. But here's the paradox. During the breaking point, economic indicators often look strong. Markets may rise, GDP might grow. Employment numbers can appear healthy, so why do individuals feel strain? Because systemic growth and personal financial health don't always move together. When expansion becomes the default strategy, stability becomes fragile. The system depends on constant forward motion, like riding a bicycle that must keep moving to avoid falling. This dependency creates a hidden risk. If growth slows, pressure intensifies, and pressure rarely distributes evenly. Early fallout doesn't look like disaster, it looks like inconvenience. Longer work hours, delayed retirement plans, rising living costs normalized as the new normal. Language shifts before reality does. Phrases like hustle culture and side income emerge, framed as ambition, but often rooted in necessity. Societies adapt, people become resourceful, but adaptation can mask structural issues. The trap tightens not because people fail, but because they succeed within the constraints. They become more efficient, more skilled, more productive, yet the finish line keeps moving. And when the finish line moves faster than progress, fatigue sets in. When pressure rises, solutions appear: lower interest rates, new lending programs, extended payment terms. These fixes aim to provide relief and often do temporarily. But temporary relief can delay deeper corrections. Imagine patching a leak without addressing the water pressure behind the wall. The surface looks stable until another crack appears. Financial systems prefer continuity. Sudden shifts create instability, so gradual adjustments become the norm. But gradual adjustments can also prolong imbalances. And this is where the trap becomes invisible again, because when relief arrives, people stop questioning the structure. Here's the unsettling part. Every generation believes its financial challenges are unique, yet patterns repeat with different names. Technological revolutions promise efficiency, new industries create optimism, innovations offer shortcuts, but the underlying question remains unchanged. Are these developments increasing true flexibility, or simply accelerating the cycle? Data in recent decades shows a recurring trend across multiple economies. Productivity rises faster than personal financial comfort. People produce more value than ever before, yet security often feels distant. This isn't a conspiracy, it's a structural pattern, and patterns don't disappear unless they're understood. So here we are, a financial environment that appears advanced, yet feels increasingly complex. Opportunities multiply, but so do commitments. Growth continues, yet stability feels uncertain. The trap isn't a villain. It isn't a single institution or policy. It's a chain of cause and effect, built slowly, reinforced socially, and maintained psychologically. But the most critical question hasn't been answered yet. What exactly is the trap, and why is escaping it so difficult even for financially literate people? The financial trap isn't a sudden crash. It isn't a villain. It isn't even illegal. It's a system of incentives, reinforced by psychology, normalized by culture, and hidden behind progress. But we left one critical question unanswered. What exactly is the trap? Because if people are smarter, more educated, and more connected than ever before, why do so many still feel financially stuck? The answer isn't a number, it isn't a market index. It is a behavioral loop, one so subtle that escaping it often feels like swimming against the current of society itself. And the most unsettling part, the trap doesn't lock from the outside. It locks from the inside. The financial trap is not debt alone. It is not inflation alone. It is not consumerism alone. The trap is the normalization of perpetual financial obligation combined with psychological reward cycles. In simpler terms, a system where people continuously commit future income to maintain present lifestyles, while receiving emotional satisfaction that reinforces the behavior. This loop has 4 stages. 1. Desire, created through comparison, advertising, and social signaling. 2. Access, enabled through credit, financing, and installment systems. 3. Adaptation, lifestyle adjusts upward to match new spending levels. 4. Dependence, future income becomes pre-assigned before it's earned. Then the loop resets, but at A higher baseline. This isn't about irresponsibility. Many trapped individuals are disciplined, educated, and hardworking. The issue isn't intelligence, it's incentive design. When a system rewards immediate action and delays consequences, human psychology naturally complies. Delayed pain is invisible. Immediate pleasure is tangible, and economies, by nature, are built to encourage motion, not restraint. To truly understand why this trap is powerful, we need to look at how the human brain handles money. Humans evolved to survive short-term threats, not long-term financial contracts. Our brains prioritize immediate safety, social acceptance, visible rewards, long-term abstractions, like retirement decades away or compound interest projections, feel distant and emotionally weak. Compared to present needs, financial traps exploit three psychological tendencies. 1. Normalization through repetition. When everyone around you carries financial obligations, it stops feeling risky. It becomes standard. 2. Status signaling. Spending becomes identity. Purchases communicate belonging, success, and progress, even when the financial reality is fragile. 3. Future self. Discounting. People subconsciously treat their future self like a stranger. Sacrificing tomorrow feels less painful than sacrificing today. This is not a flaw. It's a survival mechanism misaligned with modern financial systems, and when millions of brains operate this way simultaneously, entire economies lean toward expansion over stability. In Part 1, we described the breaking point as subtle, not explosive. Here's why. Financial stress doesn't always appear as poverty. It appears as restricted options. You may have income, but little freedom to change careers. You may own assets, but lack liquidity. You may be successful, but constantly balancing commitments. The trap thrives in this gray zone. Because individuals still function, bills get paid, life continues, but resilience declines quietly, and resilience is what protects people during economic shifts, when most income is already allocated. Unexpected events become crises instead of inconveniences. The system doesn't collapse, it tightens. The financial trap doesn't just affect individuals, it changes culture. You start to see patterns. Work weeks extend, retirement ages shift later, multi-income households become necessary instead of optional. Side projects transform from hobbies into survival strategies. Language evolves to normalize the pressure. Grind, stay hungry, never stop moving. Motivational language masks structural tension. And here's the key insight. When a culture glorifies exhaustion, it often signals imbalance beneath the surface, not because people are weak, but because adaptation has become constant. And constant adaptation consumes energy that could otherwise build long-term stability. Why don't common solutions work long-term? Because most fixes treat symptoms, not incentives. Lower interest rates increase access, but also increase commitment. Higher wages improve income, but often trigger lifestyle inflation. New financial products promise flexibility, yet introduce new obligations. It's like increasing the speed of a treadmill instead of questioning why people must run endlessly. Short-term relief is not deception, it often prevents immediate hardship. But when relief becomes routine, structural questions get postponed indefinitely, and postponed questions eventually return. Louder, technology has amplified the loop. Digital payments remove physical friction. Subscriptions divide large costs into invisible monthly fragments. Online marketplaces create instant access to anything. Convenience is beneficial, but convenience without awareness accelerates commitment. Today, a person can accumulate obligations faster in 1 year than previous generations did in a decade. Not because people are careless, but because systems are frictionless. And friction, paradoxically, used to serve as a protective barrier. Data across multiple economies shows a repeating pattern. Increased productivity, rising average income, simultaneously risingly. Then costs decreasing, perceived financial security, the numbers improve, the feeling declines. This contradiction is the hallmark of the trap. Here's where the story turns inward. The financial trap is not solely external, it is also internal. Recognition begins when people ask different questions. Instead of "Can I afford this today?" the question becomes, "What future flexibility am I trading for this?" Instead of "Is this normal?" the question becomes, "Is this sustainable for my goals?" The trap weakens the moment awareness rises, not because awareness eliminates obligations, but because it changes decision speed. The trap relies on automatic behavior. Conscious decisions slow the loop, and slowing the loop restores leverage. Escaping the financial trap is not about rejecting modern life. It's about restoring alignment between incentives and priorities. There is no overnight solution, but there are directional shifts. Shift from expansion to resilience. Instead of maximizing lifestyle, maximize optionality. Shift from comparison to personalization. Financial paths are not universal. What works for others may not work for you. Shift from immediate gratification to strategic satisfaction, not eliminating enjoyment, but balancing present rewards with future stability. Escape is not withdrawal, it's recalibration, and recalibration is quiet. It doesn't trend on social media. It rarely receives applause. But it compounds over time, the same way obligations do. Takeaway 1. The trap is structural, not personal. Feeling financially stretched despite effort is often the result of systemic incentive loops, not personal failure. Takeaway 2. Awareness changes trajectory. You don't need drastic action. You need intentional pacing. Small conscious decisions interrupt automatic cycles. Takeaway 3. Flexibility is the real wealth. True financial strength is not just income or assets. It's the ability to choose, adapt, and withstand change. The financial trap will not disappear. It evolves with technology, culture, and policy. Each generation will face it in a different form. The danger isn't participation. Modern economies require participation. The danger is unquestioned participation. Because the moment systems become invisible, they become powerful. And the moment individuals stop examining incentives, they surrender influence without realizing it. The future will bring new tools, new currencies, new platforms. But the underlying question will remain unchanged. Are we gaining convenience at the cost of control, or gaining control through conscious convenience? The answer is never final. It's a continuous decision. If this perspective challenged your assumptions, share this video with someone who believes financial traps only look like debt or crises, because the most impactful insights are rarely dramatic. They're quiet shifts in awareness that change decisions for decades. And if you want deeper explorations into hidden systems, psychological economics, and cause-and-effect financial patterns, subscribe and stay curious, because the greatest financial advantage isn't luck, timing, or even income. It's understanding the game while most people are still reacting to the scoreboard.